Meeting to order. It is now 6:04, and I'm going to call the Town Government Study Committee meeting to order. In attendance, we have Harriet Davis, Kirsten Alexander, Roger Smerridge, Deirdre Parati, Dave Anderson, Mike Lucy, myself, Pat Waddell. The meeting is virtual. All votes will be recorded. I forgot to put public comment on the agenda. We have one member of the quasi-public here. Just give a second. Any public comment? One, two, three, hearing none. Okay, moving on. We don't have any minutes to approve. And this meeting came about as a result of an email from Roger requesting it. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Roger. He has been very involved in the warrant issues and dealing with the select board. So Roger, if you don't mind, take it away.
No problem, Patrick. So I'm just going to say at the outset, I'm going to be very careful tonight to distinguish when I am wearing my committee member hat and when I'm wearing my moderator hat, because this meeting of the subcommittee is about the preparation for town meeting. Some of that will necessarily involve my role as the town moderator. So to the extent necessary, I will be clear when I am speaking in that role versus as a member of the committee. In that role, for the last couple of weeks, I've been meeting with various other stakeholders in the town meeting preparation process, including the chair of the select board, the town clerk, the interim town administrator, the chiefs of fire and police, the chair of the FinCom, head of the DPW, and the executive assistant to the interim town administrator. As part of those preparation meetings, at one point, the point came up that the warrant book did not include this subcommittee's recommendations on Article 14, the article that the select board put forward on the 3 to 5 question. Technically, the select board did not have to, because it is a select board advanced article that was based on the recommendations of this committee. But the general consensus of the planning personnel is that it makes sense for town meeting to have as much information from this committee as is reasonably possible, and that would include some informing the town meeting of this committee's recommendation. And so that brought about 2 points. One is whether this committee wants to do a one-page handout. And here I will reaffirm that I'm putting my moderator's hat on for a second. As the moderator, I have sole discretion to approve or disapprove any proposed handouts for town meeting. So if we come to discuss that, I will recuse myself from that discussion, because ultimately the committee would be submitting any proposed handout to me. And that,
Roger, can I just ask a point of order? Is anyone authorized to provide handouts at town meeting, outside of the actual gates of town meeting?
so the method that will be used this year is that any approved handouts will be placed on the chairs, so that they're there for all citizens to have at their disposal and review during the meeting. This avoids 2 things. One, it avoids a slowdown at the check-in table, which is, again, as we move inside for the first time in a couple of years, something that we desired was to keep the check-in as expedient as possible. And 2, it'll ensure that no one misses a handout, doesn't see it at the check-in process.
Let's say a citizen is outside of Bucher giving out pieces of paper. Is that allowed?
Outside, the town monitor has no control over what happens outside the meeting hall.
The issue that I have with the one pager is we have this meeting and we're supposed to come up with a one pager. We have an executive summary, which doesn't give the recommendation. We have a very short conclusion that can be appended to that executive summary to make a one pager, but substantive arguments don't fit.
So Patrick, let me get to the second point that came up, because I think this will in some ways address what you were just raising. So the second thing is what presentations will be made on this article. And again, this is something that as town moderator is in my discretion, what presentations to allow. My plan had always been to have the chair of this committee give a presentation on the committee's work and allow one member of the majority and one member of the minority to speak for 3 minutes to summarize the recommendations. Last night at the select board meeting, the select board requested that they also be allowed to give a presentation on the work that they've done since the time that the report was delivered up through the preparation of the warrant article and the vote as to favorable or unfavorable recommendation. And I'm going to allow that as well. I think that makes sense given that the warrant article is broader than what our report was able to cover because of the fact that it includes the proposed legislation. So I'm intending that both the subcommittee and the select board will have the opportunity to speak, advise the town on both the work that was done and what the recommendations are. And that will, I hope, provide sufficient information and then can be supplemented by a handout if the committee chooses and is able to put one together that I can review in advance of town meeting. So that is where things stand from my perspective as the town moderator. So I hope that addresses a little bit that concern that you just raised, Patrick.
A little bit, not completely. But I was attending the meeting last night and I thought it was unclear as to whether or not this committee would be a pro and con, yeah, a 3 and a 5 proponent, yes. But I thought it was the back and forth between the select board and yourself kind of made it unclear as though would I be able to get up and my intention, if I am allowed to address from the front of the room, because I will address from the back of the room. My intention from the front of the room is just to summarize what we have done, the vote, and completely factual, and then turn it over to the proponents of each. But I wasn't. So I will be allowed to do that.
I'm intending to allow that. I'm not sure necessarily what the select board thought was going to happen, but to your point, Patrick, any member of this subcommittee could speak as a citizen from the floor anyway. So I see no point in not having the chair give a report on the work and a designee from each of the recommending sides give a summary of the recommendation. I think that's just essential for the voting body to have that information in order to make an informed decision. And because the select board voted unanimously to recommend favorable action, otherwise it wouldn't give Mike and Harriet as the minority any voice other than to speak from the floor. And I think where they are members of this committee, they are entitled to have the opportunity to, to speak from the presenter's podium as members of this committee, or at least one of them, and give a summary of the minority's recommendation. That's entirely fair, and I think will be beneficial to an open discussion of the issue from the members of the public.
Can I just ask?
Well said.
Well said. Can I? Why isn't our recommendation on the warrant? So as chair of the CPC and a CPC member for the past 8 years, our recommendations are always in the warrant book.
So Patrick,
Every committee that comes up with something, their recommendation is always in the book.
yeah, so there's a couple of reasons. I can't speak for the select board. The select board, let me first state that the select board is in charge of preparing the warrant. Second, my understanding is that although this committee gave a report to the select board, the warrant itself was a select board warrant article. It was not like the CPC, the CPC article is advanced by the CPC. The Article 14 is advanced by the select board. They could, as we've discussed, and now I'm kind of putting my committee member hat back on, they were not required to put an article on the warrant. We recommended that they do, and they did, they took that recommendation favorably and chose to do so. But the actual article itself is the select board's article. And so the only recommendation that needed to be made on it technically was the select board. I won't speak for the select board members, but while watching the select board meeting where the articles were considered, I don't think they thought about incorporating this subcommittee's recommendation. I don't think it was intentionally omitted. I just don't think it came up during their discussions. And technically, this committee is appointed by the select board, so we are a subcommittee at the designation of the select board. So that is why I believe our recommendation did not appear in print in the warrant book. And that is, Patrick, why I would entertain as moderator a handout. It is basically to serve as a supplement because of the fact that this subcommittee's recommendation did not appear in the warrant book.
And I would say, I believe the select board has made two arguments in favor of 5. One is not including this committee's work and this committee's recommendation in the warrant for the public. And 2, putting it last, which brings up quorum issues. So we already have potentially a difficult quorum. The final article becomes very problematic. So I think that they have made 2 arguments in favor of expanding the select board. That's just
my understanding. My understanding, Patrick, from watching the select board meetings is that the reason they put this article last was because they thought it was the one that was most likely to maintain the quorum. And they feared that if this article was in the middle of the warrant, that after this article was disposed of, there might be a loss of quorum.
Kirsten?
Everyone's free to check the minutes, but that's my recollection.
Couple of questions about how much time do you think we have, Roger? And would the committee be able to prepare a PowerPoint, for example? I didn't just checked the website for the Town Government Study Committee, and it has not been updated. So if someone is looking for the report on the website, which I would if I were a regular citizen not on this committee, I would not know where to find it.
So
I
Kirsten,
know we've made that request.
The report is actually on the front page of the town
Sure.
town
No,
website.
it's not
I found
anymore.
it today.
It's not on the front page anymore. It's on the second page. So it used to be at the top of the news feed. It's
Right.
now been moved to the second page of the news feed because we have the warrant, the report, and absentee ballots. I'm on the website right now.
Well, for the last
Okay.
several weeks, it had been on the front page.
Right.
So I'll just point that out.
Yeah.
Okay, but still the page for the committee has not been updated. It's still like taking survey responses. Just, and I know we're understaffed, but I do think some kind of presentation that includes some of the stuff from the report would be helpful for people beyond a 1-page report, and is pretty typical for other reports.
So generally at the town meeting, there is a slide presentation that contains the motions that are being made. That is typically what is on visual display. No one else has approached me to make a separate audio visual presentation. I'm disinclined at this point in time as moderator to allow that. And Kirsten, the reason is what I'm envisioning is that Patrick in this as the chair and the select board will have more than the usual 3 minutes, but not a lot more. I mean, probably I would allow around 5 minutes or so. The only presentations that are essentially untimed are the FinCom chair's presentation of the budget and the superintendent's presentation of the school budget. And the reason the superintendent's presentation is untimed is because the superintendent has a statutory right to speak at the town meeting. That's the one person I cannot refuse to recognize. And then for the majority and minority recommendations, I think 3 minutes. The 3 minutes is sufficient. You know, and the reason is, and it's the same reason that we limit citizen comments to 3 minutes. There's an old saying that, you know, anything effective can be said in 3 minutes. At 5, you start putting people to sleep. At 7, you start turning them against you, even if they were going to vote for you. And I think, you know, as detailed and in-depth as our report is, I think the key points each side should probably be able to hit in 3 minutes. And then if there are questions, then, you know, I'm certainly going to field questions and determine who they should be directed to. I'm hopeful there will be lively debate and discussion on this article. It would validate all the work that we have as a subcommittee have done over the last, you know, year, month or so. But that's where I'm at as the moderator.
Deirdre?
I think that it can work fine, and I don't know, I'm not sure where they ended up last night because I sort of lost the thread at the end, but there was talk of submitting a script of what we were
Deirdre,
going
could
to
you
do.
speak louder, please?
I said I lost the thread last night watching the select board meeting because there was talk of requesting the script. Roger, I'm not sure if that's still an issue or not.
Again, I can't speak for the select board. I'm not going to require a script
Okay.
as moderator. I'm, you know, as with any town meeting at the outset, I will set the ground rules and state that, you know, decorum should be maintained and comments should be civil, you know, even when they are in disagreement. And I would expect that both the presentations and the summary of positions adhere to those. I would ask in particular, Patrick, if you're giving the chair's report, that you keep it as neutral and fact-based as possible, particularly where I'm gonna allow both the majority and the minority advocate, you know, their positions. But go ahead, Deirdre.
So where I was going with it is if Patrick does the introduction and just talks a bit about the, you know, how we did this and the process we used. I mean, essentially the arguments are already written and I haven't read the majority opinion out loud to time it yet, but I think essentially both of us could just read what is in the report without trying to ad lib in 3 minutes and so forth. I mean, making sure it sticks to 3 minutes. But our arguments are already in those majority minority reports.
Right. I would expect, and again, I'm not going to, as moderator, dictate what is said, but yeah, I would expect that either it's what's in the report as a recommendation, or you know, or a summary thereof. That would be what I would, you know, expect. I mean,
I would
basically, you know, to serve as a benefit for those who haven't read the report. And Kirsten, to your point, I'm trying to choose my word carefully here, but I would encourage the members of this subcommittee to get the report out, you know, in the days leading up to town meeting. note that it's an article on the warrant. Here's the report that we delivered to the select board. I think that's a way of getting it out. In addition to the fact that it's been up on the website, the town website, for the prior weeks. I know, Patrick, yes, it did get bumped when the warrant itself went up, but so.
Go ahead, Mike.
I apologize that I won't be there, and I defer to Harriet if she wishes to make any of those points in that allowed thing. I, for my part, am perfectly comfortable with Patrick providing a summary of the process, the mission, the process, the majority's findings, the small points about the minority's observations. Thank everybody and urge everybody to vote on it. It's sweet and simple. This committee has done, I think, an excellent job, and the town should get the benefit of that. And there we go. But I'll go whatever way you want. Totally comfortable with you doing it, Patrick, on behalf of all of us. Or Harriet, if you feel strongly about wanting to make a point or two about the minority, that's your call.
So as chair, I would be more comfortable just making a factual presentation. This is who we are. This is what we did. Thank you guys very much, because I think this has been an amazing committee. And here's the recommendation, no commentary, and then and I don't think that will take any more than 3 minutes. I really don't think so. And then gives the 5 there 3 minutes, 3 there 3 minutes, and then
Okay.
send it to the floor.
Well, whatever everybody's comfortable with. What we want to avoid is a deterioration in process and, all of that. The subject is an important one. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Mike. I thought you were finished.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
What I would, as moderator, want to see is the key points for each side be made so that it can foster discussion. And keep in mind, the article is drafted, has both the authorization and the legislation that the select board crafted in conjunction with KP Law. So now I'm putting my committee hat back on. Our piece of this is basically that first element of the article. And then, as I said, I am going to allow the select board to present as well as moderator. I'm going to allow that to how they came up with the legislation that they put into the article. But I am sure, we've been doing this for months. Sure, each side can present informative, civil manner why they think 5 or 3 is right for the town moving forward.
Right.
And I believe it would be proper form that if any of us are to address town meeting as a citizen, that you identify yourself as a member of the committee, but you are addressing town meeting as a private citizen.
Yeah, and I would only recognize members of the subcommittee in that capacity from one of the floor microphones rather than the presenter's podium.
No, wait a minute. Say that again, Roger. It seems to me that Patrick makes his generic discussion of how this came about, what the process was, and so forth. Then somebody should speak for the majority and somebody from the minority from the podium as part of the, okay?
Yep.
All right. I
And then-
misunderstood you.
And then, Harriet, to Patrick's point, if you then wanted to make a personal
Oh, okay, right.
during the actual debate, after having spoken on behalf of the minority, if you then personally, as Harriet Davis, wanted to say, oh, XYZ.
Right. No, I understand. I
recognize
didn't,
you for.
I missed that point. I agree with you. Sure.
Great, glad I was able to clarify that.
Mhm.
Roger,
I apologize because I have to leave for a 6:30 board Zoom elsewhere. But I'm fine with whatever you guys decide to do, and good luck with the town meeting.
We're gonna miss you, Mike.
Thanks,
Yep,
Mike.
great.
You'll be
Bye
missed.
bye.
Great seeing you, Mike. You look good.
Hey, and by the way, does this committee's role continue to get, let's say the result is pro 5? Do we work for the town to get it done at the legislature, or are we
No.
done?
No, we're done.
We're done as
Okay.
of the conclusion of ATM 22.
Right.
Well, it's been a pleasure, and let's find something else to do someday.
Yes, absolutely.
Yay.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Mike.
Bye.
Bye-bye, Mike.
Bye-bye.
Roger, I would just caution someone trying to call the question early.
Yep.
I've seen this
Yep.
before. If there's a line at the microphone, someone calls the question.
Yeah, if there's a line at the microphone, any first attempt to call a question would be refused. If comments became repetitive or anything like that, I
Right.
would, at that point, in all likelihood, ask if anyone intended to move for an amendment. Otherwise, we'll move to a vote.
Good. Yep.
And all points in the warrant article are amendable. Election or ballot vote, how the ballot is structured, the voting structure, that is all amendable. And if anyone is, may be beneficial to Roger, that if anyone is intending to amend, to give him a copy of the amendment prior to town meeting to make sure it is actionable.
Yeah, well, so your comment, Patrick, raises two things. I'm putting my moderator's hat on. Whether something is actionable technically contains two questions. One is the amendment within the scope of the article? That's my decision to make. The second is the amendment proposed legal? That is something that is for town council to decide. Now, all town council can do is advise town meeting that an amendment is potentially not legal. Town meeting can then still proceed so long as I determine the amendments within the scope of the article. But that's town council's role, is to advise on whether a proposed amendment would run afoul of some law.
Mhm.
I think as drafted, the article is pretty broad, but for example, as a hypothetical, if someone made a motion, the select board should be expanded to 7, I would probably rule that out.
Yeah.
Just because there's nothing in the warrant article that warns a citizen that an increase to 7 is possible.
Mhm.
The article as drafted, both in its title and its content, is very specific that it's moving from 3 to 5. But yes, as a moderator, if anyone's is thinking about a motion to amend, I would appreciate a heads up. It always helps. I will note for the members of this committee and the general public that may be watching at another time, I will require that all motions to amend be made in writing.
Mhm.
The reason for that is because in Wenham, the way we do it, we do not circulate the motions in advance. We have them written on the monitor at town meeting so that everyone can see it at the same time.
Mhm.
Any amendments that get voted on favorably can then be typed in live on the screen so that you can see the main motion change as amended. So that's why, among other reasons, substantive motions to amend I'll require to be in writing. It's also
Roger,
so
do you
that
have,
it's,
Can you require it in writing because it's
Yes.
town meeting?
Yes, I can.
If someone says, hey, this doesn't make sense, I want to remove this part. So I guess it's already in writing, you just strike it.
It's up to my discretion what constitutes substantive, Patrick.
Mhm.
If it's alteration of a single word and it's very clear what that would be, I might entertain that without a written form of the motion. But if someone, for example, on this article and this motion were to want to propose an entirely different piece of special legislation, I would absolutely require that to be made in writing, both so that it can be reflected up on the screen so that everyone knows what the legislation looks like that they're voting on. Also so that Trudy, as our town clerk, has a clear record of the motion to amend.
Roger, do you have any indication at this point what the setup is going to be? I've heard
Yes.
we're going to use 2 rooms?
Yes. So as I said last night on the select board meeting, the current plan, and we are intending to finalize this Friday morning, but the current plan is to use both the gymnasium and the multipurpose room. In the gymnasium, we will have 2 sides set up with different seating configurations. One will be traditional style seating, so full rows all the way back. This other side will be staggered seating, some single seats, some double seats, all 3 feet apart. No masks will be at this time required in the gymnasium. That is obviously subject to change if in the next 10 days, all of a sudden we have a huge flare up or something like that. The multipurpose room will be intended as a mask required space for people who would feel more comfortable being around people who are also wearing masks. That's the current plan for setup.
How about the screens and whatnot? Will there be, how's that going to work?
So there will be the main screen on the Bucher stage is a projector screen that'll come down. In the gymnasium, about halfway back on each side, we will also have TV monitors so that people in the rear are able to see a little bit better. They don't have to look all the way to the projector screen. In the multipurpose room, what we will have is 2 monitors. One will be showing the slideshow, what's on the screen in the gymnasium. The other will be showing the video feed from the gymnasium so that anyone in the multipurpose room can see, in addition to hearing, what's happening in the gymnasium.
Do you know if the meeting will be televised live? On
It will be.
occasion in Wenham, it has not been, in order to better assure a quorum.
My understanding is right now it will be broadcast over HWCAM.
But live,
Yes,
we've,
that's my understanding.
okay, just curious because it might be something to think about. Because then people, what they do, they see where you are, they'll come in for the articles they want, they'll leave.
The benefit of that here, the benefit of it, Harriet, is that if we don't yet have a quorum and it's live, we can call out to anyone who's watching on HWCAM, come on down to Bucher.
Well, you know what we used to do like a lifetime ago, when all our call firefighters were Wenham residents, somebody pull the fire alarm.
Hilarious.
So let's move to the one pager. I think we have the town meeting set up. Okay, so let's talk one pager. Kirsten, I see you.
Well, I also just wanted to say, we also, I assuming Harriet will accept the call to be the minority voice, but that we also need to have someone be the majority voice. I would prefer that's not me, so.
Yeah, I'm willing to do it.
I think because Deirdre actually wrote the document, I would defer to her to make the presentation.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
If the majority is in agreement there.
That's fine with me. I was gonna suggest Deirdre or David, yeah.
No.
Obviously, Roger can't do it.
Yeah.
You weren't in the minority anyway.
Or the
But I think-
majority.
I would suggest that, so I was looking through the report. The majority report is 7 pages, including rebuttal. So that might be too long for town meeting. So summarize.
And one thing that I would urge is stick to the substance and maybe not get as concerned about methodology as the report did. The concerns that both sides raised with methodology were appropriate for a report, but I don't think anyone in the town meeting is going to be concerned about methodology. So, I would,
Yeah.
you just kind of just stick to the key points on why 5 may be better or why 3 may be better.
It's
I think
straight
that
from
makes
the
sense.
recommendation.
And if there are points of contention, they can be discussed.
Yeah,
Private citizen.
if, for example, if a citizen were to, say, hey, I read the report and I see, this comment about the methodology, then I would, in the first instance, direct that to you, Patrick, as the chair of the committee. And if you saw fit that the question was better answered by another member of the committee, you could let me know and I would entertain a request to recognize that person.
So the one pager, I did look at the report again, and our executive summary is approximately 3/4 of a page. The very brief summary of the vote is a little less than 1/4 of a page. So those two fit together to make a one pager, but it does not have any of the.
I'm fine with back and front. I'm fine with back and front, Patrick. So, for example, the school committee, has requested, and I've approved a one pager that will be back and front for their school budget. So, yeah, but again, for a handout, I would require it to be informative, fact-based, and not advocacy-based. The advocacy will be, allowed when the majority and minority summarize the recommendations. The handout is designed to, again, supplement what's in the warrant because the select board did not include this committee's recommendation in the warrant book, and to provide that information. So
in a sense, what you're saying is, should we not prepare what we would have liked to have seen in the warrant book on both sides and have that as our handout?
yeah, that's a fair characterization, Harriet.
Mhm. Short and sweet, summarize the points. I see Paul has joined us. Maybe he has some thoughts on this.
I totally agree with Roger's point. I think the arguments can be back and forth. I don't think the methodology is relevant or of interest to most people. So I think the simple, here's the reasons for, here's the, on the two sides, I think that would work. Yeah, and so I was admitted late, I guess, so I don't know whether the handout you're discussing is intended to include a minority report thing, or that would be a separate paper to be negotiated with Roger?
No, I would invite one single handout that includes to Harriet's point, basically the commentary in an informative sense from both sides, as if the select board had invited the committee to prepare them for the warrant book.
Yeah.
And Roger, do we need to submit this handout to you, 24 hours in advance or what?
Probably a couple of days in advance, because you're going to have figure out who's going to print it and deliver it to town hall on Friday.
How many copies? I mean, you can run it off. It's just a one pager. Anybody's printer, town hall printer could do it. Copier.
So the problem here is we don't have a one pager as of right now.
Well, I realize that, but we'll conjure up one.
Who? We time runs short. We'd have to have another meeting to approve a one pager. We can't just say, okay, here, here's half a page, take it. I don't think. It seems that, again, time is short before we actually go before town meeting. Do we have the time right now to put together this one pager and approve it? Because it's got to be approved by the committee.
Why does it have to be approved by why can't the majority approve one and the minority approve one?
Because that's two. We have one page. So
I know, but I'm saying the majority will approve their portion of the one pager.
So you have one half of a page, because from what I'm thinking is the executive summary and the summary of the vote are the front page, and then a half a page for the majority and a half a page for the minority.
Look, maybe we can just say the obvious here. And I'm willing to take the reins. We're going to have another meeting before this thing. I would be willing to condense into one page the factual argument on the front, and on the back summarize into a half page the majority, and as fair as I can be, the minority. I'm literally just going to cut and paste from the report and drop it in there without edit. I will post it by tomorrow,
Okay,
and we can meet by next Tuesday. I don't know what the meeting notice requirement is, or Wednesday.
It's 48
So for
hours.
Tuesday, we would have to have, Patrick would have to have the agenda posted Friday. Right, Patrick?
And I need to find an available day as well. That's our other issue.
Dave, when you said you would do the arguments for the facts, or I forget exactly the words you used, but it inferred that it was the facts that support 5. And I would assume the facts
No,
are all
it-
even-handed.
both.
They're simply the data. Got it. Thanks. Sorry.
It's basically the executive summary just distilled down on the front,
Yeah.
and on the back, half a page condensed majority, half a page condensed minority. It's really kind of like bullet points, just easily digestible stuff. And we can review it and we can revise it as a group if we feel like something's not right or needs to be changed.
Sounds like a good plan. I actually have another meeting at 7, so I know I can't approve anything in the next 15 minutes. That's my guess. Thank you, David, for offering to
Thanks,
do that.
Dave.
That
That's
makes
a great
sense.
offer.
And if we could meet Tuesday or Wednesday next week, I think that,
the warrant
that
hearing is
works.
Monday.
right,
So
so that's
they
not
would,
good.
it would be helpful if we had something to say at the warrant hearing.
Have we been asked
Uh,
to say something at the warrant?
Gary,
hearing?
I'm not sure you're gonna
Yeah,
get the opportunity. I would urge everyone to attend the warrant hearing, but it'll be, as this is a select board article, it'll be up to the select board to, in the first instance, answer any questions, and if they see fit to have input from the committee, then they see fit. This is, again, one of the reasons why I, as the moderator, took it upon myself to make sure that in addition to the report being out in the public, this subcommittee has a method at town meeting to present its points. But I urge everyone to attend the warrant hearing, of course. As the moderator, I have no control over the warrant hearing.
Right, the
That's fine.
finance committee, it's up to Jim Purdy, really.
Well, and as to the select board articles, it's up to Catherine. So it's it's a combined meeting.
And-
No, but it's the warrant hearing is run by the finance committee.
No, it's technically joint, but
Mm.
And as chair of 2 committees, I've been asked to present nothing to the warrant hearing, so.
Mhm. So
Uh,
if we were asked, we would say, Roger, you might say, somebody asked at the warrant hearing, you might just say, the committee will make a presentation at town meeting.
and I think you could certainly refer people to the report. I personally see no problems, someone has a question, answering.
Mhm.
But again, it's only going to be if the select board chooses to recognize someone from the subcommittee to answer
Mhm.
the question at the warrant hearing.
So
Dave, when
Uh,
will you have your, do you think you said you might have it tomorrow?
Yeah, I will, if not tonight, I'm going to email it to Pat by end of day tomorrow. And then Pat, can you post it? to our,
Yes.
or you can
absolutely.
send it around. You can email it, post it and email it around. Is that,
So then we'll have it for the warrant hearing,
well, it won't
even if
be
it's not
voted.
finally
Yeah.
approved.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will post it in a public, in the research documents folder. And on meeting, I guess Tuesday or Wednesday, the select board will meet Tuesday.
Mhm,
So I think it would have to be Wednesday.
mhm.
That's
Wednesday
the
or Thursday.
candidates. That's the
What's that?
candidates night. So I'm not sure I would be able to be there, but
The candidate is Wednesday.
Yeah.
So we
Which
could
it-
push, to Thursday, because that's something I definitely want to see.
Well, one night is school committee and one night is selectmen. David, which is which?
my memory's correct. Wednesday is select board and Thursday is school committee.
The school committee. And what time is it scheduled for?
I think it's 7, but I'm not 100%
So
sure.
Patrick, we could meet at 6 on one of those nights to approve, if you feel that's necessary.
Well, it's going to have to be necessary. We're not going to put a document out there without a committee approval. So,
But just to make an observation, I think if the statements on both sides are derived from the longer reports and don't get into entirely new stuff, it seems to me, that's more or less of an administrative matter rather than introduction of whole new stuff.
That's the
But I think it's
intention.
fine to hold a meeting if you're more comfortable doing that. But I'm just saying, if I were asked to referee on that without having done any research, I'm thinking, this is if these statements, as they should, work within the bounds of the respective reports, then it shouldn't be anything different from what the committee has approved in substance on the full report.
Roger, when does a document have to be to you? Or to town hall for copying, or I don't know how the copying process works. Do we provide all the copies, and if so, how many?
You are gonna have to provide the copies.
Do we have a budget for that? I don't
No.
think we have a budget.
no, we don't.
So wouldn't it be the select board's responsibility to print it?
My guess is that the select board is not gonna volunteer to do it, but again, I can't speak for the select board.
This is a simple
Okay.
one-page printout of the, and some hundred number of copies. It's a Staples operation, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have a laser printer. I could print it.
So
I just need to know how many.
Yeah, in terms of the number of copies, Kristen, sorry, I was speaking with a Kristen earlier today, so I apologize. The last couple of town meetings, save for ATM 2020, when the school override question was on the warrant, not gone over 200 voters in attendance.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to print it out
I-
and donate that to the cause.
So it looks like next Thursday, maybe our best option. And again, early, so we can see the school committee.
Sure. So you're saying Thursday?
We get the ZBA on Wednesday, select board on Tuesday. I wouldn't want to have a meeting before the select board because even if we did it at 6, I feel like Deirdre should be able to prepare for that. So Thursday would probably be our best option.
Okay.
folks, I'm sorry, I have to leave, but I can do 6 at any night next week except Monday. And I'll
Got
just
it.
stay tuned for whatever it is, and I'll get that to you tonight or tomorrow with the latest pack.
You're
So
the
can we
best.
do 6
to
on the
leave.
6 on Thursday,
I
the
believe so.
31st?
Right.
Okay.
Thank you, David.
So
yes,
the
I'm looking at the notes.
purpose of the Thursday meeting is to review what Dave has presented and just make certain that we are happy enough with the presentation. I mean, you know, there are always different ways. It could be a verb or an adverb or whatever in the wrong place or whatever, but basically that would be the goal. To wordsmith it slightly, but not to rewrite it, is what
That's
I'm
the
getting
hope.
at.
That's the hope.
Hopefully.
If we get there, we'll probably scrap it.
And
But
then,
yes, the hope is that it'll be a quick, easy meeting.
so then just procedurally, Patrick, first of all, I would recuse myself from that discussion and vote. Then after you as a committee approve the submission of it, you, Patrick, would then email it to me at my moderator's account, and I would respond, you know, that it is approved. If it's what Dave says it is, I can't imagine why I wouldn't approve it. But that way you know,
Right.
through the formal channel and you get your approval, and then it can be printed, and then it would just have to be delivered to town hall on Friday, so that it can be added to the materials that will, you know, be brought and distributed.
Do you know what else is going to be? You mentioned a school handout. Are there any other handouts that you're aware at this point?
No, the school committee is the only other one that's been submitted to me.
Mhm.
And as far as we know, other handouts that are not town sanctioned are fine to be given out prior to entry into the building.
Again, what I will say, Patrick, is that as moderator, I have no control over what people do outside of the town meeting hall.
And Roger, who does the flyer go to at town hall on Friday? Is there someone in
I'll
particular?
confirm that. I believe Michelle is organizing all the materials, but I'll confirm it on Friday
Okay, great.
and have that information. It'll either probably be Michelle or Trudy, because one of them will be bringing
Okay.
materials to town meeting itself.
Mhm.
Do we have anything else to discuss?
Oh, actually, Patrick, just so we can check the box, I note on the agenda that there is review and approve any outstanding minutes. I do not believe we have any, but could you confirm that?
Yes, and I actually ran through that at the beginning of the meeting.
Oh, I didn't hear you. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
But
I
no,
Yeah,
we
he
apologize.
did-
did. Mhm.
I don't have any minutes to distribute or approve.
Mhm.
Catherine's gonna tell me she sent them to me and I lost them in my inbox.
I'll send them again.
Mhm.
Sorry, Catherine.
Add that to the agenda next week.
Yes, I will make sure to distribute.
And I think that will be our last meeting.
It should be. It should be.
Mhm.
Can I have a party from 3 to 5 some afternoon? Go to the tea house.
Yeah, absolutely. Entertain a motion.
Motion to
That
adjourn.
we adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second,
Harriet's a second. Harriet,
yes.
Kirsten,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Deirdre,
Yes.
I'm a yes as well. Paul, thank you very much. Catherine, thank you as well.
See you at 6 o'clock on Thursday.
And at the warrant hearing.
And at the
Good night,
warrant.
everyone.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
I-